Welcome, everyone. This is Michael Gibbs, and I'm the founder and CEO of Go Cloud Architects and Go Cloud Careers. And I'm here today to help you build your best cloud computing career. Maybe your goal is to become a cloud architect, or your goal is to become a solution architect. But I want to help you get that first cloud architect job, that first solution architect job, that first cloud architect job, that first enterprise architect job, network architect job. Really, I don't really care. I just want to help you get your first tech job. I'm here 3 times per week, completely free, doing what I love the most, helping you all build your best technology career. For those of you that don't know me, I've been working in tech now for over 25 years, and let me tell you, I've loved every last minute of it. But for more than 2 decades, I've been helping people get their first tech job or get promoted in tech for more than 20 years. And I want to help you get hired, or cloud promoted, because that's why we do training, to enhance our career. We don't take 50 certifications to destroy our career. We do training, we do education, we gain knowledge to build our career. But part of building your career is knowing what to learn, when to learn it, how to learning it, knowing what the job is in your career, not somebody else's, and learning the right skills for your career. Imagine a doctor that went to school and they trained as a pilot. Would you expect them to practice medicine? Of course not. When an architect studies sysops, they're not an architect either, because they're learning someone's career. And why do I do this? Here's the reason. The opportunity cost of your time. It's a concept that's really critical in business. What do we mean by opportunity cost? If you spend your money here, you can't spend your money somewhere else. If you spend your time here, you can't spend your time somewhere else. So if you spend your time learning the wrong things, it doesn't prepare you for your job. In fact, it damages your brand to the point where makes it impossible to get your job. So that's why we're here. Here's the shortest distance between points. It's a straight line. 25 years ago, when I started in tech, I asked my certification providers what to do, spent so much money, and got nothing, literally nothing out of it. And then I spoke to 50 recruiters, 50 of them. I called them all and said, what do you want? I'm the perfect network engineer. And they told me. And as soon as I knew it, I was hired immediately. Not only that, I've asked thousands and thousands of hiring managers and recruiters over the last 20 years, what do you want in the perfect cloud architect, perfect cloud engineer, perfect network engineer, perfect enterprise architect? And I've been advising my customer for the last 20 years on what they tell me. How did Toyota dominate the auto industry? Here's what we did in America. We made what we thought our customers want, and we try and sell it to them. Here's what Toyota did. They went out and asked people, could you tell me what you want in the perfect car? Do you like this design? Do you like this design? Do you like this design? Then they were even smart enough to ask the customers, now that you know what you want, what'd you pay for it? Why do you think they won? Why do you think they crushed the American car industry, which had to get bailed out? That's the reason. Because if you are what the hiring manager wants, you're going to get hired every time, paid more than the competition, and you're going to have the best career. So bring us your questions. But before we do, let me tell you about some amazing things we're going to do to help you completely free build your cloud computing career, so you can get that first cloud architect job, first solution architect job. I'm going to tell you right now, the cloud is nothing more than a network and a data center that's outsourced and virtualized. Do you know the most critical part of any network, a data center? The network. Because when the network goes down, guess what? Everything goes down. If you don't know the network and the data center, you don't know the cloud. So most people don't know networking, and here's the reason why. As Albert Einstein said it, if you can't explain it simply, it's because you don't understand it well enough. And when we see people whose only networking knowledge is they took some little AWS certification, they don't know the network and they can't teach it. And that's why you hear complex mumbo jumbo, clack, 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 and you're all lost. But here's the thing. I've been working in networking now for 25 years. My Cisco certified internet expert number is 7417. Back when it was a 2-day exam that everybody failed, that's when I learned networking, and I love it, and have every week. So this week we have 2 completely free workshops for you. Just sign up on the link and you'll get invited to both. A subnetting workshop, because how you design your IP addressing scheme will determine how well your network or cloud will work long term. And we also have a BGP workshop, and that is critical networking knowledge for the cloud architect. But it's not just critical knowledge for the cloud architect and the network architect. If you get this wrong, everything goes down. Want some examples? Somebody at Google Cloud made a BGP error, and guess what happened? They took the whole Google Cloud down. Somebody at Facebook made a BGP misconfiguration error, and they took the whole cloud down. Wait, Cloudflare was down about a week ago. And from what I heard, it was another BGP misconfiguration error. So I'll be doing it with my 25 years experience completely free to help you get cloud hired. So please sign up. The link is in the chat box and the description below. On Thursday, like every Thursday, we're going to have our How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar. It's going to be completely free. People come from all over the world. It'll be on Zoom. We'll talk for about an hour, and we will answer your questions for a full hour on Zoom. You'll come up mute, and we'll do anything we can to help you get that first cloud architect job, or first solution architect job, or first cloud engineer job. I want you all getting cloud hired. Now, next week, guess what? More free training, because we love you, and we want to help you get cloud hired, cloud whatever you need. I'm going to run a completely free AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate Bootcamp. We will start at the very, very beginning, and we'll get almost to the AWS Certified Solution Architect professional level in this bootcamp, and it's going to be fun. It's going to be a real class. I would never torture you with PowerPoint slides and audio-based. That's not training. Watching videos without the ability to ask questions is not training. So accordingly, we'll run it like a real classroom, the kind of $4,000 and $5,000 bootcamps you would take if you go to a Cisco or a Global Knowledge, or you were really getting quality training, where we'll talk for 20 minutes and we'll answer your questions for 10 minutes. And we're going to do it completely free for you. So please sign up. The link is in the description below, and it's in the chat box. Now, before we begin, I like knowing where you're all at. I'm just north of Palm Beach, Florida. I love it. Some people from my team, I can see Leo's over here in Sao Paulo, Brazil. Alonzo's over there in Katy, which is near Houston, Texas. Chris from my team is in St. Petersburg. Many of my team are all over the world, and I love that. So tell us where you're from in the chat box. And while you're at it, give me a hashtag Cloud Architect, Cloud Engineer, so I know what kind of career you want to have in your life. And then after this, bring us your questions so I can help you build your best cloud architect career, cloud engineer career, solution architect career, enterprise architect career. I don't care. I just want to help you build your best technology career. And that's why we're here 3 times per week, completely free. So if you want to tell us where you're at, I love it. Marietta, Georgia. Dallas, Texas. We've got a lot of people in Dallas, actually. Helen Jackson, Cloud Architect. I'm loving it. Leo, Cloud Architect and Cloud Engineer. Fantastic. Hillsborough, Tampa. I know that area real well. Pacific Northwest. Fantastic. Someone in Virginia. I love that. Toby in Nigeria. I love that. I'm so happy you're here from so far away. Las Vegas. Fantastic. Marie Walker in Alabama. Love it over there. I haven't been there in a while. Eddie Patrick, who's part of my team, and he's a great architect, is in Cameroon. We've got somebody in India. How wonderful is this? And Alonzo from my team. So bring us your questions so we know how to help you build your cloud architect, cloud engineer career, or your tech career. Japan, I'm loving this, but you're living in Kuala Lumpur. Hi, Carlos. It's nice to speak to you. Thank you so much for all the hard work you do to help the cloud community. Again, thanks. I do everything I can, and the 7 members of my team work hard to help the community. We work via our free program, and our students get access to training that's the best in the world, and we do it at a cost that nobody else would be crazy enough to do, because I want everybody getting cloud hired. And I don't want to make a dent in somebody's finances, other than I want to make them make a lot more money and build the best career. Hi, Amos. Good to see you. Brother Will, let's go. E-Money gets in, solution architect. I'm loving that. Ask us your questions. Pile them in the chat box. M3 University Business Imagineering. I'm not sure what that is, but that sounds kind of cool. Kim Davis, you're more than welcome. Toby, hello, Mr. Gribbs. Great content and always good to be here, and good vibes. I love that. I'm so happy you're here. Kim Davis, what are my thoughts on an aviatric certification for cloud architects? Are these valued in tech like the prestigious certifications? Kim Davis, I want to make this very clear. As cloud architects, we design, present, and sell. And as a rule, certifications are not that valid for us. And here's the reason. A customer, the people that hire us want to know that we're experts at digital transformation. Meaning they want to know that we can walk into a business, understand that business, analyze that business, the business inputs, how to increase revenue, how to cut expenses, how to improve collaboration, how to remove error defects, how to improve process engineering, etc. They want to know that's what we need to know, that we can do that. And then, Kim, after that, when we're done that, they want to know, do we have the technical competency to design a solution? To design it. Now, Kim Davis, we don't code, we don't configure, and we never touch the technology. So certifications, to let you know, are all, here's the name of a service and how to configure that service. What do cloud architects do? Design, present, and sell. So all in all, certifications are not that valuable for us. So Kim, the reason we do certifications as cloud architects is as follows. They help us get an interview, but they will never, ever, ever get us hired. No certification except for the Cisco Certified Internet Expert alone is enough to get hired. None of it. Because we design, present, and sell. So when you start thinking of an aviatrix, and I like their solution, it's a WAN technology. And there's a lot of WAN technologies. There's SSL VPNs, there's IPsec tunnels, there's private lines, there's Ethernet over MPLS, there's software-defined networking, there's SASE, and I could go on and go on and go on in terms of layer 2 tunnels, VPLS, etc. Aviatrix is just one small component of that. So when you compare a Cisco Certified Network Professional with a good 10,000 pages of reading to get there, and one of these introductory junior level certifications, it just doesn't do it. I love the Aviatrix platform. A lot of those Aviatrix people are great. You know what? They're great. And they know networking. They're from Cisco, like me. So Aviatrix is awesome, but certifications don't build architecture careers. Here's what builds architecture careers. Extreme knowledge of the network and the data center, which means BGP, OSPF, etc. Extreme knowledge on IP addressing, subnetting, and supernetting. Route summarization, optimization, aggregation, etc. Knowledge of which WAN technologies to use. When do you use a private line versus an IPsec tunnel via software-defined networking, etc. Knowledge of switching, VLANs, VLAN tagging, VLAN trunking, etc., etc. Spanning tree, rapid spanning tree. Not how to configure it like on one of these certifications, but how to architect it, which is design it. So then next, and I'll ask you some thought-provoking questions when we're done this. Knowledge of ARP and proxy ARP and DNS and DHCP, for example. Knowledge of quality of service and packet filtering, for example. Real knowledge of NAT, one-to-one NAT, one-to-many NAT, static NAT, dynamic NAT, port address translation, etc. On the networking side. On the data side, in terms you need to know how to design a cloud, not just use the public clouds, because you're going to be dealing with hybrid clouds everywhere. You're going to be dealing with multi-cloud. So again, you need to know multi-cloud. And again, they're teaching a little bit here, but you need to understand the architectural principles that are not covered in a certification. They teach us the name of a service and how to configure that service. So when you know server virtualization and containers and container orchestration and storage and block storage and file storage and object storage, and not at that junior level that they teach in the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional, but I mean at the expert level, the kind of thing if you went to IBM or Dell EMC and you really learned it. That's what we're talking about in terms of knowledge. And then databases, and I'm not talking about these cloud native proprietary databases that for the most part I would never use because they lock you in. But when do you use a NoSQL database versus a relational database? Hey, wait, how do you scale these databases? Now I've got a NoSQL database, but my write traffic is heavier than my read traffic. That should key me in that I could use Apache Cassandra, for example, because Apache Cassandra uses a lot of nodes and they can all write. By comparison, if I've got much more read traffic, which is more common, a NoSQL database like MongoDB is going to better fit into the situation. Then there's next things like this. So we've got that and how do load balancers work, how to architect them, how to stack them, when do you need an application load balancer, a network load balancer, when you need both, when do you need an enterprise functionality one versus the cloud one, what kind of firewalls to use in your next generation firewall strategy, how do you architect your IDS, IPS systems and your VPN concentrators for remote access. Kim, that's the knowledge you need to know. And then you need to be able to do an ROI model, sell, write thought leadership documentation, etc., present in front of customers, build business cases, and be CXO relevant. Now, when I ask you that, is any of that covered in an aviatrix certification? Of course it's not. All these certifications are geared towards engineers. So if you really think about it, engineering is somebody else's job. So pretend you're a building architect, Kim Davis, for a second. Building architect designs the blueprints for a building. And I go to them. I want to build a beautiful 5-star hotel. I want 3 restaurants, lush waterfalls, lush gardens, a golf course, 16 pools. I say that to the architect. And what do? They build a beautiful drawing of it. And maybe they laser print out some kind of a model for it. They draw pictures. And then, Kim Davis, what happens? They hire a construction crew to hammer it in, use saws, drills, zip, and I don't know how tools work, but I've heard them a lot of times. So, Kim Davis, do you think it would be beneficial for that architect to learn how to use a hammer, which is somebody else's job? Of course not. So when you want to be an architect, you got to build a portfolio, a resume that shows you're an expert in system design and business acumen. And as much as I love aviatrix certifications, especially for my cloud network engineers, I love it. It's just not enough. So if you want a networking certification, the reason I like the Cisco ones is as follows. Cisco teaches OSPF, and that the same OSPF, the way they teach it exactly, will work on a Juniper router or anybody else's router because they teach it in generic terms, not proprietary names of service and how to configure this, like all these silly cloud certifications. So keep that in the back of your mind. Kim, you want to build your portfolio? 2 certifications, a networking one, like a CCNP, and a cloud one, like the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional, the Azure Solution Architect Expert, or the Google Professional Cloud Architect. Now, if you don't desire to be working in cloud networking and you desire to work in cloud security, change it to a CISSP and maybe an AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional, a Google Professional Cloud Architect, for example, because you got to build the brand for that. What's Apple make? It's pretty clear. Cool stuff that's fun to use and is pretty reliable. What's Mercedes make? Something that works well, that never fails. They can make a taxi that drives 1 million kilometers. People know that. What's BMW make? The ultimate driving machine. It's a performance car. Nobody's going to keep it for 10 years because they don't last that long, but they are the best performance cars in the world. So everybody's got a brand. Be that brand and you'll get hired. When I get 10 people reach out to me to hire me each day, it's because they want a cloud architect. And what do they see on my resume? Nothing other than business acumen, networking, and cloud. Nothing else. I've got nothing else on there for those reasons. So that's what we're trying to talk about. Become an expert in your career. Don't learn somebody else's job. Learn your job. Build a portfolio that makes you great. Master the things that matter. Now, Kim, I'm going to give you some more statistics. Certifications can raise your salary of up to $10,000 to a point, and then they max out and they give you no value, one whatsoever. Training soft skills can raise the average person salary 30%. Training emotional intelligence on average can raise somebody's salary $29,600 per year for the average person. So now you train soft skills, and the average cloud architect earns about $160,000. So train soft skills, that's $55,000 a year to your salary. Train emotional intelligence, that's another $30,000. That's $80,000 in your career every year for the rest of your life. Oh wait, that's $2.4 million over 30 years. Don't waste your time becoming a certification junkie. Build your career. Build your portfolio. Get hired, get paid more than the rest, and live the life of your dreams. Kim Davis, that's the advice I have for you. Love the question, though. I really do. Chris, if you want to bring in the next one. You've got an interview call and you're loving the channel so far. Fantastic, fantastic, fantastic. Maximize that interview. Here's the things that you got to show people in an interview. They need to know that you are technically competent at your job, not somebody else's. They want to know that they can trust you. So don't bluff or lie, because they can tell. I'm not going to interview someone and ask a question that I don't know the answer to. There's no bluffing. I want to know that you know what you know and know what you don't know, so you make mistakes. When I see a 10x AWS certified person, here's what I know. They don't know what they know and they don't know what they don't know because they don't know anything. They've got hobbyist knowledge about all little things. I can't use them, hire them for anything. They apply to me all the time. I did interview a bunch of them, but found that they knew nothing about nothing. And now I won't even interview anybody that's got that many certifications on their resume. I just drop them right then and there. So show that you're an expert at your job versus somebody else's job. Now, the employer wants to know that you're an expert and you're motivated, energetic, and enthusiastic. So don't ask questions like, what's the work-life balance? At the end, interview is over. Show how you are the following: energetic, enthusiastic, and passionate about the work. That's what we need to see. Now, we're always looking for somebody called an energizer. So I just hired somebody on my team today. Actually, 2 new people I hired on my team today. And one of the people, she's just amazing. She walks in the room and everybody feels great. That's an energizer, someone that brings out the best in others. Employers love this. What else do employers want? Team players, and here's the reason. A real employer knows that I'm not going to design any architecture on my own. Never. A real employer knows that architecture is a team sport. That I'm going to go meet with a client, I'm going to interview their CEO, their CTO, their CIO, their CFO, their department heads, their VPs, and I'm going to learn about their business and their goals. I'm going to go back to my company and I'm going to go build a team of 50 people. I'm going to get cloud security architects, cloud network architects, cloud IAM architects, database architects, big data architects, and I'm going to go on and on and on. I'll bring in some DevOps engineers, some cloud engineers. Together, we're going to work together to design a good solution. And I'm going to take the design back to the customer. I'm going to present it to them. I'm going to write up 3 versions of it: an executive document, a managerial document, a technical document. And then I'm going to go negotiate it, the sale with the sales team until it's done. And when we're done, guess what? When the customer says, yes, Mike, I want this, here's what we do. We leave. And we never touch the ticket end. And we go back the next time they call us 3 years later and say, Mike, I want to do something new. So because of that, that's what you've got to communicate. You communicate that. And one last thing, the willingness to go above and beyond. This is so critical. So critical. Keep that in the back of your mind and you will get hired. Let us know where you're from in the chat box. You have a question for you. Is the cloud architecture a good place to start for data science? Of course not. Data science is data science and cloud architecture is cloud architecture. But I'm going to give you some tips on data science careers. First, compared to cloud architecture careers, they pay half. Just get that in the back of your mind. 2, I'm going to tell you that data science jobs are some of the hardest jobs in the entire world to get. They are really hard. Do you want to know how hard they are to get? Even for the people with PhDs in advanced statistics, which is usually what you need for one of these jobs, I've taken in data scientists, several of them. And the reason they came to me is they spent a year trying to get a data science job and nobody would hire them. And this is after applying to 100 jobs a day. They came to me. One came to me and I turned them into a cloud engineer. And one of them became a critical part of my organization. The reason is these data science jobs, it was trendy a couple of years ago, but there's far and few in between of them. So what I can say is, if you struggle with data science, which a lot of people do, and you can't find that data science job, then we could teach you cloud architecture and you could become a cloud architect instead. Look, if you love statistics and math and being a hands-on coder, etc., writing your Python scripts, learning machine learning, whether it be TensorFlow, PyTorch, or these other things, and you love that kind of stuff, it's great. But understand, it's a much lower paying job than architecture, and it's a much harder job to get than architecture. But what I truly believe, MFA University Business Imagineering, is that you should do what makes you happy. And I truly believe if you become an expert in your field, it would be great. But cloud architecture and data science are not the same. Data science is data science, cloud architecture is that. So when people ask me this question, I like to ask you this. If you wanted to be an airplane pilot, do you believe learning how to become a nurse would help you? Of course it wouldn't. If you want to become an airplane pilot, spend all your time. I love gymnastics. Never competed in it. I competed in Olympic weightlifting and powerlifting and martial arts in my youth. Those are my games. Now I'm injured, so I just do yoga, but that's neither here nor there. But those are my things. Simone Biles, the world's most decorated gymnast, she's amazing. If she turned into a marathon runner, she'd eat away at her muscle strength, speed, and power. So she trains for gymnastics. If the world's best boxer wasn't training boxing, but they were training basketball, Every minute they were training basketball, they wouldn't be getting better at boxing. But you know who would? Their competition. So who's going to win the competition? The person that practices boxing. I used to practice internal medicine. I don't know why. It was something I was interested in. Do you think that helped me design networks? Well, not usually. Now, at some point entering a university, 15 years into my networking career, Cisco says, do we have anybody with expertise in designing systems in the hospitals? And I went, woohoo, it's me. I can practice medicine. And of course, I go out on that team. And my career did this. But why? I was an expert on my field. But prior to that, I was designing systems for banks. Walk into some bank on Wall Street saying, I'm a nurse practitioner. I practice internal medicine. They're like, yeah, Mike, I need a techie. So I didn't even tell them. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind. I hope I answered your question. The biggest mistake I see in all tech careers, and I've been doing this for 25 years, is everybody is so focused learning everybody else's job rather than their own. Here's the problem. Let's assume you're going to go to war. And an interview is war. 10 people show up and only one person wins. Everybody else gets, so it's war. It's like competition. Only one person wins. There's no participation trophies in terms of who gets hired. If you have to go to war and you're the well-trained warrior, you're probably going to come home alive. If you've got two people, if you've got a Navy SEAL that's doing 6 hours a day of training, all on attack, and they're doing 4 more hours a day planning strategy. And by comparison, you got somebody else smoking cigarettes and drinking and not working out on training. Who's going to win the war? The SEAL. They're coming home alive and the competition's going to die. So the point is master your career. Career is war. Win, 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 play to win, fight to win, and win. So I hope I helped you. That's my advice. And I will tell you, I've done it in my career. I've done it in the people that I've coached career. My people get to the top a lot faster and they earn a lot more money because they're experts at what the managers need them to do, not somebody else's skills. Great question. And please bring in the next question, Chris. Fallon Jackson, in a real world scenario, would the architects determine compute capacity or that would be in the engineers? It's a combination of both, Fallon. And here's the reason why. When we go to the customer, we ask the customer some questions, etc. At some point along the line, we have to baseline their systems. And we bring in the engineers. And that's going to determine what we need. But the architect and what we need to do is kind of there. Let's say, for example, I've got a virtual machine in the data center that's got 128 cores, 4 terabytes of RAM in it, and the CPU and memory utilization is 70%. Guess what? That system's getting close to maximum utilization, but it's still running good. If we go to the cloud, what do we need? That same system with the same number of CPU cores and DRAM. So yeah, we just lift it over and move it over. Now by comparison, Phil, and let's say we've got a system in the data center that's got 128 cores, 6 terabytes of RAM, and it's operating at 4% CPU and memory utilization. When we go to the cloud, we have to say, do we need that capacity? Well, no, because it's operating at 4%. So maybe 4% of 128 cores is, or so let's say 5 or 6 cores, I'm doing it in my head. We might say I need an 8-core system on the cloud. And we could put a bunch of them in a load-balanced auto-scaling group, and that's all we're going to need. So what we have to do is we have to look at your traditional network and data center and find the equivalent services on the cloud. That's it. So it's pretty easy. But if you don't know the network and the data center, you will never know the cloud. I cook Greek food, right? I'm Greek. I like to make chicken souvlaki. Souvlaki is usually made out of pork, but I don't eat pork for certain reasons. So think about this. If you were to make a souvlaki, but you didn't know what chicken was, olive oil, salt, pepper, oregano, and garlic, could you make that souvlaki? Of course you couldn't, because you don't know what the ingredients are. So Fallon, this is all about knowing the network and the data center. Here's the thing, Fallon. We network and data center people have done the same thing for the last 25 years. It's not new. We have a virtual machine sitting in there in VMware ESXi. We change hypervisor to the KVM or QEMU because it's free, or Zen or whatever, maybe a Citrix one. We're making the same comparisons. None of it's new. The cloud is just a network and a data center. Now, it's really hard to take old stuff and call it new. So I really liked last year's press release with AWS when they said, we now allow east-west routing. We support it. And I looked at it and I sent that post to like 15 CCIEs. And I said, is this the same routing between subnets that we did back in 1985? And they said, yes. So I said, what's the press release? They're like, well, they're trying to catch up with the 1985 technology. And then I saw a principal architect at AWS. He clearly didn't know networking at all. Last week, he posted, AWS now allows IPsec over in a direct connection. And I say 1998 wants its technology back, because that's the first time I did that. IPsec over a private line. Now, if we don't know the network in the data center, we can't calculate compute capacity. We can't do our routing. We can't determine our subnetting, supernetting, traffic engineering, etc. We can't figure out what our load balancers, firewall architectures, etc. So yes, in a real world capacity, we determine a lot of the compute capacity, but we also work with the engineering team to do it. Excellent, excellent question. Because that goes into design, Philin. And design is what we're building. Now, we will never set up the virtual machines or configure them. That's the job of the cloud engineer. But we need to know how to architect it. How do we architect a building? How do we design a car? How do we design an airplane? Design. We're not the construction crew, but we need to know all about that, how to design it. How do you move a server? What's going on with the server? What's going on with its memory, CPU, DRAM, etc. That's what we need to know. We know that, and we're masters in moving it. But yes, that's an architect job thing. While we're at it, before we get to the next one, if you just joined us, please join us for the free AWS Bootcamp. We're going to do it next week, completely free. The link is in the description below in the chat box. Please join us for the subnetting workshop and the BGP workshop this week. The cloud is nothing more than a network in a data center. And critical to that is understanding and networking, so we're doing it free. And please join us this Thursday for the How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar. I'm going to help you all get your first job. Chris, if you can go to the next one. Hi, Tom, over there. I think you're in the Netherlands. It's good to see you. Philin Jackers, you've been looking for some architectures. In what case would you put a security group around a load balancer? Look, Philin, I think what you really need to understand it, and I'm going to produce a video on how to secure your VPC. A security group is nothing, and is part of a big complicated security architecture. So when it comes to security, it's like peeling back an onion. So the way I like to look at it is as follows. At the edge, well, first outside your network, you're going to use a content delivery network, and then you're going to use a firewall to keep unwanted access in. So I like to think about a firewall as walls around the castle. Like if I had a castle and I had some pretty important people inside, I'd build a wall, a couple 100-foot wall. That is your next generation firewall. Now, over the wall, if I was going to secure a castle, here's what I would do. I'd create a big moat or lake around it, and I would fill it with sharks and alligators and crocodiles and all kinds of dangerous animals. And that way, if an attacker breached the firewall, they'd fall into the moat and they'd get eaten by the sharks. But what I would do at the end of that is I would also hire some Force Recon Marines, some Navy SEALs, some Israeli Mossad people, some British SAS commandos, and I'd have them armed outside that lake, so that if anything were to get past the firewall and the moat where they didn't get eaten by sharks and alligators, they get killed by my military people. So what's that called? The stopping the people that get through, that's called your intrusion detection and intrusion prevention system. And all that's integrated into your next generation firewall, which is why I've never done a security architecture using something like AWS WAF, and I probably never will, because I need robust security. And then after that, I'd probably run a second IDS IPS system. Look at it this way. I've got my SEALs, my Force Recon Marines, my Mossad people, my people British SAS commandos. But behind that, I'm going to have a second layer. Maybe they're a full platoon of Marines or some Army Rangers, just in case they breach my specialists. Second IDS IPS system. And then I'm going to have something called an access control list or a network access control list, same thing, to protect the subnet, to make it sure that if somebody breached my firewall and they got past my moat and all my military people, now they're blocked again. And then after that, I've got my servers, right? That's where I typically apply the security group. And that's basically a host-based firewall to allow entry into a service, whether it be a load balancer or a host. And then I'm going to look at that and say, well, I partially protected my host, but am I going to leave my host out there at war without some body armor and weapons? That'd be insane. So then I'm going to armor my servers. I'm going to disable unnecessary services on these servers. I'm going to put another host-based firewall on these servers, for example. If you ever do a computer and you type a netstat, you'll see all the unnecessary ports your computer's on. I'm going to close all those unnecessary ports down because they can be hacked. I'm going to have my sysops or maintenance people do some patch management. I'm going to put some antivirus and anti-malware protection on there. Probably going to encrypt the storage on my servers. And then heck, then I'm going to determine if once somebody breaches all these level of securities, I got to figure out who they are, what they're allowed to do, and I want to track them. So that's where my identity and access management comes in. Who are you? What are you allowed to do, and then track it? So that's what goes into security. And so you can put a security group protect a service, but lots of people say, Mike, for security, do I do an AWS or security group? I'm like, wow, that's only part of the enterprise security strategy. Hope I answered your question, fellow, in there. It was a great, great, great question. And so I'm going to be very careful with reference architecture. And here's the reason why I hate reference architectures. Reference architectures are cookie cutter. Here's what you do in this case. Here's the problem. What designs the architecture? The business problem that customers are having. So your tech doesn't do your architecture. The business problem you're trying to solve defines the architecture. So there's no such thing as a reference architecture in the real architect world. And if you do, you're not providing digital transformation for your customer. In every case, if what you do wants to matter, and Fallon Jackson, this is the difference between a $500,000 a year architect and a $150,000 a year architect. The $150,000 architect looks at reference architectures. The $500,000 architect goes to the customer and truly understands their business. They've got the business knowledge to understand. They read the financial statements. They read the balance sheet. They read what industry analysts are telling them. They're looking at what their competition is doing. They're listening to department heads and the people, what do you do? And then we determine the optimal end state to drive that transformation. And then we fill in the tech. And that's why reference architectures are reverse engineering, and reverse engineering always produces a bad product. So that's why I don't like reference architectures. And that's why people say, Mike, can I have a reference one? I'm like, no, because I went to learn how to be an architect. Look, I practiced internal medicine too. It's the same job as an architect. I knew people that didn't know medicine well. Everybody that came in a sore throat got amoxicillin 400 milligrams 5 times a day. Some of us with culture, unless they had a penicillin, some of us with culture, some of us would look at the thing, figure out what's going on before we just had a knee-jerk reaction. It's the difference between being a chef and a short order cook. We're chefs. We tune it based upon whatever is in season, in flavor, what the customer wants, et cetera, et cetera. Love that question, Philip. Chris, you can go to the next one. Ask us your question. Please ask them in the chat box that come online because I want to help you build your best career. Alexander, Kalispata. How does a pizza man like you with a passion for technology become a great cloud architect? Alex, I love this. So here's the thing. I know something about owning a restaurant because my family owned a Greek diner. So, yasu. And here's the thing. Someone like you that's worked in a restaurant, a pizza man, if you want to call yourself, you dealt with the population. Ding, 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 really critical skill. So when my family had a diner, and even though I was practicing medicine, I was working at the diner. How are you, Joe? How are you, Sally? It's good to see you here again. Hey, Sally, I know you like this. Let me bring it out to you complimentary. And Alex, somebody would come in and say, I don't like this Philly cheesesteak that I've gotten, because we lived in Philadelphia. And I'd say, I'm so sorry you feel that way. Is there something else I can get you? Can I get you something different? He would do that? Of course I could. Of course I could. Let me fix this for you. Now, Alex in a pizza place, which is the most chaotic place in the world, you got 18,000 things going on. You have to manage a team. You have to coordinate things. Now, Alex, let's take my wife. She's the cutest, greatest, smartest, and I love her dearly. But when she orders something, it has to be a certain way. I'd like it plain without this. I'd like it not burned, but not pink. I'd like it this. She wants it the way she wants it. And I love that. And you know what she does? She walks in and she gives explicit instructions. And I can tell you the restaurants that are good versus the restaurants that are bad. The good restaurants accommodate it and tune it to her. The bad ones just give her the same thing that everybody else does. So Alex, your communication skills of dealing with clients, your leadership skills of managing the team, your sales skills, would you like this to upsell? Huge for the architect. You're solving customer problems. These are what we do as an architect. So Alex, I know, get yourself an internship, maybe the Go Cloud Careers internship, because I know you're in the program, where you have a cloud architect title and you do cloud architect stuff for us. Now I've got a cloud architect job, but when you show to the hiring managers, leverage them. Alexander, when I went my first cloud networking interview for network engineer, and they asked me a question I didn't know, here's what I said to the hiring manager. Look, I said, hi, Devendra, I want to be honest with you. This is not something a technology I've had the opportunity to learn yet. So as a matter of fact, yesterday, I was doing rounds on my patient in the hospital, and this is my first tech interview ever, and I love tech. I'm highly energetic, highly motivated, highly enthusiastic. And if I was part of your team, I'd stay up all night and learn what I need. But I need to be honest with you, this is not my strength. It was fine. Alex, last week, Jermaine, I know you know Jermaine. He's a really great guy. His last job was a landscaper, and he just got hired by Capgemini as a cloud architect. And he's amazing. Daniel Bosu's last job was working at Nordstrom in the shoe store. Just got hired as a cloud architect by JPMorgan Chase. Coyote was in college when he got hired by AWS. Romanik Ivan Tambo was working as a food server while he was going to school, who got hired by AWS as a solution architect as his first job. You take those wonderful skills that you have, Alex, and I know you and I need to schedule a call. I know you got one. You scheduled one or ordered one while I was out with COVID. And I reached out to Chris today, so he's going to be getting these things scheduled very soon. I promise you, we're going to take your background, your strengths, and there are many, your customization strengths, your problem-solving strengths, your leadership skills, which are great. We're going to show that to show the hiring manager that you are good, and they will love you based upon your personality. I know you, and you're going to do great. That's how you do it. Show the hiring manager that the skills for your last job. Want to hear something funny? I didn't remember to take my internal medicine background off of my resume a long time ago. And I had 6 months networking experience. I applied for a network architect job that wanted 15 years of experience in networking. And the recruiter sent me because the HR department made a 60-page job description full of everybody else's job, other than the one they wanted me to do. And when the person interviewed me and they said, Mike, tell me about this internal medicine thing. I'm like, oh yeah, I used to practice internal medicine, but because it was an nurse practitioner, but really my love is networking. And they said, could you tell me how your past life in medicine is going to help me? I said, absolutely, John. I said, John, here's what happens in the medical office. Somebody comes in with something called the chief complaint. It's their problem. For example, my throat hurts. I said, so John, what do? I ask him questions. What makes your throat better? What makes your throat worse? And he said, okay. I said, from there, I examine the patient. I look in their ears, their nose, their throat, their heart. I listen to their heart and lungs. I make a diagnosis, and then I write a prescription based upon what's going on. The prescription is my plan. And I said, John, what does a good network architect do? They interview the executives, like you. They interview the CIO. They interview the CEO, and they ask about the business pain points, the business challenges, the business goals, just like I did in medicine. Then Normally I examine my patient, but in this case, I'm going to use some of your engineers and we're going to baseline the systems. Then I'm going to make a diagnosis and then I'm going to make a plan. So John, let's put it together because I've got a lot of education in medicine and a lot of experience. Doctor interviews a patient. Architect interviews a client. He says, yes. Doctor examines the patient. He says, yes. I said, architect examines the baselines of the current system. He says, yes. I said, doctor makes a diagnosis. Architect makes a diagnosis. He said, yes. Doctor makes a plan and architect makes a plan. And he said, you're hired. In fact, I got paid $170,000 for that job in 1999. It was in 2000. And it was because they liked me so much because I presented well. I communicated well. And the real thing that made me so good was I should have known my medicine job prepared me for my network architect job. That was it. Now, if I didn't have the medicine thing on my resume, I wouldn't have done it anyway. But I forgot to take it off. What happened was as follows. Christina, one of the best recruiters I've ever met in my life, calls me and says, hey, Mike, I got a job for you. Interested? I'm like, let's talk. I'll meet him. And she sent me on 2 interviews. I got 2 offers that day, but I only accepted one of them. The other one's for big global bank as well, but I really like these people. I sent her the resume so fast that I forgot to take my medical things off, and that's how I justified it. So love your background. Love your experience. Use the experience that you have because it makes you you. Love yourself. Love all what you can do for the customer based upon what you learned. Then you'll get hired and you'll become a great architect. Leverage your life experience. Those things that I talked about that you do in that pizza shop are 40% of the job anyway. Hey, you know what other thing is 20% of the job as the architect? Entertaining clients and taking them to restaurants that you're already experts at. I'm not joking. In one job, I spent $100,000 on lunches on the corporate credit card. And I hate to say it, but that year I spent $100,000 on dinners and drinks as well, entertaining clients. So we spent lots of time in restaurants, and it seems like you got a lot of comfort and experience there. Great question, Alex. Love that question. Please feel free to ask your questions in the chat box, et cetera, et cetera. If you're enjoying, if you can leave a like, a comment, a subscribe. Carlos, what you're saying is true. I have AWS, Azure, GCP. I got a couple interviews and haven't got hired on them. Here's what's going on, Carlos. No certification is ever going to get anybody a cloud architect job ever. Because the cloud architect we design, present, and sell. And in engineering, these certifications are the name of a service and how to configure that service. But we don't do any of that. So essentially, these certifications are showing we're not there. But Carlos, it's worse than that. It's a lot worse than that. When you deal with an architect, you're looking for a digital transformation specialist, which is mostly a business executive with the technology to get the job done. And what happens is their companies are looking for at least 50% executive. Now, they want to know you've got network and data center design skills, which are not covered in any of these certifications, but they want to know it's there. I'm also going to tell you, Carlos, that I've never been on a job interview for which I didn't get an offer, ever. Now, Carlos, I don't want you to think that I'm some special person that can go on a job interview with a magical gift. I'm not, but here's the reason why. Whenever I go on a job interview, I do the following. I learn with expertise. What does that company do? And then I read their financial statements. I read their balance sheets. I read industry analysts so I know where their challenges are. So I'm prepared for the interview. Because what's the interview? It's a sales call. Then I find out what that company needs. Now, I look at a job description, which I know is completely irrelevant, written by some HR department that doesn't know the job. But what I usually do is know somebody, especially now with LinkedIn, it's easy. Find some people that work at the company and find out what they actually do. And make sure, find the kind of interview questions they ask. When you know that, master those things ahead of time. Master the elevator pitch of why they need you. Know for a fact that hiring managers care about these things. Can you do the job? Your job, not somebody else's. Can they trust you? And I'm going to tell you, in the first 5,000 interviews I did in my career, 4,950 people bluffed or lied to me. So that interview ended right there. They want to know that you know what you know and know what you don't know. And you know what a 10x AWS certified person knows? Nothing. They know so little, they don't even know what they don't know. And I'll give you some examples. When I was a CCNA, I thought I knew networking. When I became a CCNP, it's like, this networking thing's pretty big. I know some of it. When I became a CCIE, I went, oh my God, there's so much networking to learn. And what's the difference? The more I knew, the more I realized how much I didn't know. When I was in college, I was an EMT and a paramedic, and I thought I knew it all. And then when I started practicing internal medicine, I went, oh my God, I'm going to be reading 1,000 pages a day, every day for the next year. And I did, just to be able to do it. Because then I knew enough to know what I didn't know. So make sure you've got those skills. And then on the interview, show your energy, your enthusiasm, and your passion and love for the tech. Because who do I hire? Someone that wants to work for me. Not only, all right, I'll accept it. Now the next, you've got to project positivity. Here's what I mean. The person that walks in the room and says, hi, everybody. How are you? Joey, you look good. Sally, nice work. Do you need some help? Hector, what's going on? Carl, can I assist you? That person comes in, raises the energy of the room, and makes everybody work better and produce more output, which makes the manager happy. So then you need to project that. Now, Carlos, what do most people say? I don't feel like working. What's my work-life balance? I don't want to work. You go in there and show that you are motivated to go work, help that customer solve that problem, and help that manager get promoted. They got to hire you. And then here's the problem. The next thing you need to show is you're a team player. You do this, it's almost impossible not to get hired on your interview. Now, doing all that is a lot of preparation. I've never gone on an interview and not gotten a job, but I've never gone on an interview without at least 100 hours interview preparation, specific to that job and that job alone. And there you go. Gunther, I'm going to introduce and respond to that question immediately. What's wrong with my eye? I was involved in a massive disabling accident while training in martial arts. That accident left me unable to walk for a period of 8 years, unable to use my left hand, unable to use my left foot at all. It took me 8 hours of physical therapy per day to be able to walk again, to be able to sit in a chair. And what did I do? As soon as I was done with that, I decided to come out of retirement because I saw all the bad certification training that was out there, and then provided all free certification training. So after this disabling injury where 13 doctors told me I would never walk again, 2 doctors wanted to put me in a coma to try and reboot my brain. I have a little thing with my eye, and it's part of me. So I am me. We all have accidents and injuries, and my left eye is my left eye, but I'm still here, and I don't need to work. I'm doing this to help people get hired, to help people build their best careers. So we all got something. I got lots of injuries. I've got 5 herniated discs, 2 torn rotator cuffs, labral tears in my hips, and arthritis in every joint that the doctors want to do joint replacement surgery, but they can. And yes, a little eye thing. But I'm still out here helping the world the best I can. I've gotten 100 people cloud architect jobs this year. And some of these jobs have been super high paying jobs, upwards of $300,000 a year too. So I got an eye thing. Chris, let's go to the next one. Yusuf, you just enrolled in our program yesterday. Yusuf, I did see some kind of email that came in yesterday. I know my team responded to you. We kind of backed into a process. Our team is actually, specifically Chris from my team, is going to manually enroll you from the program. He should hopefully get that to you today, but he will definitely get it to you by tomorrow, so you can be in tomorrow morning's 9 a.m. class. We are excited to be working with you. Toby Lowe. Is learning the AWS Cloud Practitioner course on the AWS redundant you're asked to become a cloud architect? So Toby, there's 2 things. Normally I tell people do not do the Cloud Practitioner exam ever, except under the following circumstances. There's a video on my YouTube channel which says do not do the Cloud Practitioner and why. And here's the reason. Normally speaking, the Cloud Practitioner will never get anybody a job, normally speaking. Additionally, the Cloud Practitioner and the AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate, the training is so similar that I generally like to start people with the AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate. Now, here's the time that I'll tell you to do something different. I'm part of a group called Cloud Heroes Africa. It's run by my friend Alphonse, and 50 people from my company volunteer to teach this course. Now, the reason we're helping to teach the Cloud Practitioner course in these circumstances is AWS is offering free vouchers for the exam. And when you pass an AWS exam, you get 50% off your next exam. So think about this. So often in sub-Saharan Africa, specifically in Cameroon, where I'm working with a large group, I also do some volunteer work in Nigeria and other places that join these missions. I've got people that typically have a low salary of a couple $100 a month, and these exams are a fortune, which are really hard to save for some people. So if I can get people through the Cloud Practitioner, and then they go straight to the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional, which is the next step that we use that Cloud Practitioner for two reasons. We get a certification, and when me and my team and Alphonse and Eddie from my team and all kinds of people and Abigail from my team and other people are teaching this group, they're not really teaching the Cloud Practitioner in the first place. They're teaching mostly the Certified Solution Architect Associate. With enough Cloud Practitioner to get somebody there, kind of keep that in the back of your mind. And then we go straight to the, to the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional. So think about it this way. If we've got someone that's earning $300 a month and we can get them a free AWS certification, and then the Certified Solution Architect Professional, which is really the certification where people start to get interested, for $150, we basically took the certification course from $450 to $150, and we love that. So that's the reason we occasionally do the Cloud Practitioner. I'm seeing people are charging $9.99 for a Cloud Practitioner bootcamp, which is insane. It's just someone that's just trying to take somebody's money and hurt their finances for the future. I may do a free Cloud Practitioner bootcamp for those reasons. Again, I like to start everybody at the Solution Architect. And when we start at the Cloud Practitioner level, and we do it on the same course almost all the way to the Certified Solution Architect Professional, because it's really there. But, here's the thing. Sometimes we got to do the certification that we can. So if it's in your budget to go straight to the Associate and Professional, do it. But if it's not, you've got a free voucher, take advantage of the free voucher, use that for 50% off of the AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional, and go conquer it and go win. So that would be the advice that I would recommend, Toby. In the end, nobody hires you for your certification. And Toby, I had someone named Jeffrey. He had a Cloud Practitioner. He got hired as a Cloud Architect. I have had students with 0 cloud certifications that get hired as Cloud Architects because they know what they're doing. While we're at it, please register for this month's subnetting and BGP workshop. I really, really want to help you get hired. Please register for the free webinar on Thursday where I'll teach you how to get your first Cloud Architect job. And guess what? Please join us on the completely free AWS Certified Solution Architect Bootcamp next week. Link is in the chat box in the description below for all of these. And if you want us to help you get your first Cloud Architect job, we've got a Cloud Architect Career Development Program, and we get people hired every single day. Chris, bring in the next one. M3 University, this is really helpful. Thank you so much. I'm glad we were able to help you on your architecture or your data science career. Beta UI, you said that engineers make bad architects. Well, I didn't necessarily say that. I said engineers and architects do different jobs. And I said engineers often have a hard time transitioning from engineering to architecture. But suppose one learns the skills for architecture. Would that work? I'm not liking being technical. Here's the problem where engineers have a hard time transition. If you want a cat, and I love cats, guess what? And you go to the pet shop and see a beautiful golden retriever, do you buy that dog? No, and here's the reason. You want a cat. Now, if you wanted a golden retriever and you saw a cute cat, you're still getting the golden retriever because people hire what they want. So keep on that in your mind and really understand that. Now, here's the problem. If your resume has EFS, EBS, S3, WAF, Shield, etc., and all the coding and configuring you've done, you look like an engineer. You're the dog when somebody wants a cat. Now, if you have an engineering background, that can be helpful if you can fix your brand. See, nobody wants to hire an engineer as an architect. They want an architect. So for the engineers, here's what you need to do. And I'm going to run a resume workshop. It'll be a relatively inexpensive workshop, but the reason I'm going to do this is our average student gets between 5 and 15 interview requests per day, even if they have no experience, because you have to do it. But on your resume beta, if you're an engineer, you have to show that you're not an engineer. Let's say you've been working in tech for 10 years. 2 years of it can show hardcore engineering if you want, but the rest of it needs to show architecture. So here's a difference. I recently looked at a software engineer that tried to become a cloud architect. He says, Mike, what do I do? I've been on 30 interviews and nobody wants to hire me. And I said, how many interview requests would you get? None, but I'm calling this recruiter, this. I'm like, okay. I looked at the person's resume. I coded this, coded this, coded this, coded this, configured this, coded this, coded this, coded this, coded this. And I looked at it and I said, instantly, that's why you're not getting hired. And he says to me, what do you mean? I said, you just talked about all the websites you coded in all the different languages. And they said, yes, I'm really technical. I said, great, but they don't want that in the architect. And he went, oh. I said, but here's what they do want to know. They want to know that you can positively impact a business with your technical expertise. So your technical expertise is good, but we got to reposition you. And he said, okay, Mike, tell me what I need to do. I said, instead of talking about all this coding, talk about design a website for this business that increased sales by whatever percent. Designed application which increased this by whatever percent. Design new HR application that improved HR efficiency by 13%. Implemented new communications and collaboration platform that increased new product development speed by 30% while simultaneously reducing error defects by this. Change all the tech to the impact your tech made. That's an architecture thing. Now, if you've got a bunch of engineering certifications on your resume, you won't look like an architect. And here's the thing, Beta UI, often you have to remove the certifications. Every day somebody comes to me and somebody gave them this horrible advice. Hey, on the way to learn your AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional, you should get a developer associate, SysOps associate, DevOps associate. It's even worse that these people that are doing this, which are crushing people's dreams and careers by giving them bad advice, are then saying, here's a bundle, you buy my whole bundle and get all these certifications. And here's what happens. The person spends 9 months on these certifications. They go on interview. And then when the person wants to get a cat, they look like a dog because they want an architect and they look like an engineer. They get interviewed, and nobody's willing to hire them. So then what do they do? They usually come to me. Mike, what do I do? And I say, we'll take you into our Cloud Architect Career Development Program. We'll take you from ground zero and teach you how to become a cloud architect. We'll start with the fundamentals and teach you the expertise. Then we're going to have to change your resume, like I just described to you, and I have to strip off all these irrelevant certifications because they make you look bad at your job and good at somebody else's. And usually they fight me, and when they get their first $200,000 job, they're like, Mike, thank you. I'm going to tell you, I've got a guy, I think he was an IT graduate. He was one of the smartest engineers that ever came into my program. Really, really respect him and really, really like him. He went on interview after interview after interview, and nobody would hire him. He said, Mike, I don't understand. I go on these interviews and they're asking me all this tech stuff, not like you're describing. And I said, what's on your resume? Because you didn't submit your resume for review. And I looked at his resume and I said, oh my God, this is terrible. I said, can I dedicate a class to turning your engineering resume into an architect resume? He says, Mike, I'd be so grateful. So I took one of our 3-hour classes, because we used to do 2 3-hour classes. Now we do 3 2-hour classes. And we as a class literally had our way with the resume. I got rid of all software engineering or removed his DevOps, HisOps, whatever. About 2 weeks later, he had 3 offers. He called me back and said, Mike, I've never received an offer like this in my entire life. I can't even believe how much money they're willing to pay me. I can't believe it was all soft skills, social skills, executive presence, communication skills. I got 3 offers. I said, because now you look like an architect. They said, you always were. but you were showing everybody else you were not what they wanted, you were somebody else. So that's the key. Here's where engineers struggle. And here's the biggest career mistake I ever made in tech, because I came out of engineering. I can tell you right now. When I first was an engineer, I was Mr. BGP. And I was darn good at it. I have over 10,000 hours in just BGP. Over 10,000 hours. And keep that in the back of your mind. I started working as an architect where my job was design, present, and sell. And then one day there was a BGP challenge and I went and coded. I configured it. I'm in the router, I'm having a good time. I come out, BGP is working beautifully. What did I miss? Main components of the design, because I tried to do engineering. And you can't do two people's jobs at the same time. That is where engineers struggle. They want to get techie. Now, Bader, I had a person that was an engineer for about 20 years. He took my course and got a $300,000 enterprise architect job upon completion of the course. He struggled in the first half of the class. And he's like, Mike, how do I get out of engineering thinking? I sat him aside. We pulled him aside in class. We talked about it. 4 weeks later, he's acting like an architect. 2 months later, poof, he's got a $300,000 enterprise architect job. It's all about being what somebody wants. If you wanted to buy an airplane and somebody showed up with a boat, it's not what you're looking for. So that's the thing. It's not that engineers that, but the other thing that you have to overcome as an engineer, most people assume engineers can't talk, they don't communicate well, they have a bad attitude. It's not true, but a lot of people have this impression. And a lot of that comes from, the old days in tech. So when you are an engineer, you're going to have to show that you communicate well, have executive presence, CXO relevancy, leadership skills, sales skills, soft skills. You do that and you'll get hired on everything. And I got to tell you, when I went from a hard job, which is an engineer, to an architect job where 50% of what I did was give speeches and buy people lunches, dinners, and drinks, life got easy. Engineers work really, really hard for half the pay. Now, if you love being hands-on technical, it's the greatest job in the world. And I know engineers and I respect them, and I couldn't do anything without an engineer. Seriously, here's an architect. Here's my pretty document, my pretty presentation, my sales negotiation. Without the engineers to bring that design to life, it's just PowerPoint ware. So I love engineers, network engineers, cloud engineers. I love them. I just don't want to be one anymore. That's the challenge. You get past that challenge, you'll be hard and you'll have a great career. And then you can even leverage that engineering as a strength because you'll have more technical knowledge. Hope I answered your question. Please feel free to ask more. If you're having a good time, if you could subscribe, hit the like button, tell others to join us. We want to help the world get cloud higher. Economy subnetting. Why Class A only shown with the /8? Well, come to the free subnetting workshop, and then you'll understand why classful addresses have a /8, a /16, or a /24 boundary, and why we have to subnet that down or use classless interdomain routing to build a real design for our system. So join us in the completely free this how to subnetting workshop, which is going to be this week. If I could start my career all over again, what would be the path you would choose? And where should I start? You're looking for step by step. So I want to make this very clear to you. I started my career in internal medicine, and the reality is I learned more about soft skills, empathetic communication, and emotional intelligence in medicine than most people would ever learn in their MBA program. And I have an MBA too. So I'm going to tell you that training in medicine is really how I learned to become an architect, but I wouldn't recommend that for anybody else. If I could start my career all over again, or I'd recommend it, I would tell people, do not get a technology degree. Get a bachelor's degree and or an MBA as your degree and learn the technology on your own. Because when you go to school, the professors have generally never worked a job, and they don't know what to teach you because they don't know what they don't know. And it gets worse than that. When you go to college and study tech, that's programming. They give you what's called generic preparedness. And what is that? A little knowledge on 1,000,001 people's things. And then what happens when the person gets out with their master's degrees or PhD in tech? They don't know how to do the job because they've got very diffuse knowledge. So there's that. Now, entering university, I'm going to tell you the thing that I learned best. I had been working as an engineer for 2 or 3 years. I had to take a CISSP boot camp that week, and I fell asleep in the CISSP boot camp because it was boring me. My manager grabbed me on the shoulder and he says, "Mike, can you come with me? I'm expecting to get scolded for falling asleep in this boot camp that the company paid for us." And my manager, first thing he did, he says, "Here's a spiff, which was a bonus for doing a good job." And then he says, "I need to talk to you." I'm like, "Okay." And he says, "Mike, you're not a normal engineer." I'm like, "Okay." I'm waiting for the ball to drop. And he says, "Look, these engineers, they speak in acronyms. Nobody understands them. They mumble. They're afraid of the customer, et cetera, et cetera." He says, you don't even come to the office. You go to the customer site. He said, "The customer loves you so much, they made you an office there, and you go there every day." He says, "You go to the customer site, you buy them lunch, they talk to you." He says, "You bring in a team of engineers, and they're really analyzing the customer's environment." He's like, "You really are different." He said, and this is 20 years ago. He said, "Would you like to know the difference between a $150,000 sales engineer like you and a $300,000 architect?" And I was like, tell me, because I really wanted to know. And he says, "Mike, it's the impact you make to your organization or your customer." He said, "It's the transformation you could do. How do you improve your customer with the tech? Not how does the tech work?" He said, "We got low-paid people for that. But what the tech can do for somebody, that's the thing." He said, "It's your business acumen. If I can put you in front of the CEO of a big bank, and you can communicate them without getting kicked out of a room like an engineer and fired, you can make a difference in the customer." He said, "If you can lead a team of engineers to bring out the best in others and make, the engineering team together greater than the sum of the people on their own, you're making an impact." He said, "When I can get you in front presenting at every industry conference, when I can get you published in magazines and journals, when you can sell," he says, "you're not a $150,000 engineer, you're a $300,000 plus enterprise architect." And he said, "Would you like training?" I was like, yeah, please. What did I do? I went and got an MBA. I took $100,000 of leadership training courses. All in all, my education cost me about $250,000. And in that, I learned leadership skills, sales skills, executive presence, emotional intelligence, business acumen, CXO relevancy. And 20 years ago, I got that $300,000 enterprise architect job. I actually retired when I was 34, and I came out of retirement for one reason. I saw what the certifications providers were selling. I interviewed 1,000 AWS certified people, and none of them were hireable. And I felt so bad that I wrote a book on passing the AWS exam, gave it away for free, and started doing free AWS training. Now, I did start paid training, which we do, which really changes people's lives and gets them their first cloud architect jobs. And I've changed so many lives this year, I can't count. And the reality is we charge 1 day's pay for the average, which is effectively my cost to run the business. And I do it because I don't need to work, but I do want to make sure the world gets cloud hired because I love it. So if I had to do it all in all again, I would have learned early on not to get as many certifications as I did. Because I had a bunch of them in the beginning. I had a CCNA, CCNP, CCIE. I should have done the CCIE from start and been done with it. I had a CISSP, an MCSC, an MCP, and I had a whole bunch more CCDA. I was getting certifications. I was just grabbing each week. You know what I had to do to improve my salary? Get those certifications off of my resume. If you see my resume right now, it says Mike Gibbs, MS, MBA, CCIE, and I usually put Google Professional Cloud Architect. Look, I have other certifications, but I remove them from my resume because I don't want to tank my salary and my employability. So those were the things I wish I learned when I was younger. How to optimize my career, how to be an expert on my career and not everybody else's, and how not to waste my time branding, doing certifications. And also in my youth, I wish I learned how to build a bigger network. I got that as I was older, and that made all the difference in my career. Those are the things that I got to tell you I learned. Now I'm telling you, I've got people that are 21-year-olds and 22-year-olds getting $150,000 jobs, sometimes with no college. In fact, I got a really fine young man. He was a great man, and it was a very sad story. He spent $35,000 on a worthless certification with some kind of boot camp that was supposed to help him level up. He came to me and he said, Mike, nobody's willing to look at me or help me or hiring me. And I spoke to him and I said, what? I said, Daniel, and he made a video on our channel. I said, what you can do with that is really nothing. And he really looked sad. In those days, it was just me and Chris, so I didn't have a staff. I gave him a scholarship. Can't do that anymore with the staff, but it was a long time ago when it was only 2 of us. He just got his first job as a cloud architect for JP Morgan Chase. And guess what? He didn't even finish high school. He didn't even finish the high school. But the employer wanted him. What he had heart. He worked hard. He turned in the paper. I'd say it's not good enough, and I submitted it back to him. He submitted it a half a dozen times. And on the 5th time, he's like, Mike, is it ever enough? I said, I don't know. At one point, I submitted a paper 76 times. And he said, okay, I'm very proud to call him a graduate. I'm very proud to call him a friend. If I had a son, he'd be exactly like Daniel. That's exactly what I wanted him. Hard work, dedication, motivation, energy, enthusiasm, passion, good nature, and good heart. And I'll probably have him back on my YouTube channel again because I love the guy. He's just amazing. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind. Chris, let's bring in Michael Dunn's question real fast. Please provide Michael Dunn the link to the Cloud Architect Career Development Program. The first set of courses you should take on my team is as follows. The Cloud Architect Career Development Program. That's the only program you need to get to go from start to finish to get hired. That includes everything. It's about 500 hours of training all in all. It includes how to design your own cloud, how to design private clouds because you'll be working with them, how to work with multi-cloud environments, how to be an architect, how to lead, design, present, sell, literally speaking, all of it. And the results are, we'll let you stay in our program until you're hired or 1 year passes, and you don't need a year to get hired. So we've got an extremely high rate of getting people 6-figure plus jobs. We love it. We love it. I just had Leo Paredes from my team pop a link to the course right now, as well as a 20% coupon. So that's the one. It's the Cloud Architect Career Development Program to get your first cloud architect job. And it's the Cloud Engineer Career Development Program to get your cloud engineering job. We made it so simple. Cloud architect job, cloud engineering job. And these courses are dedicated and focused on the skills to master for your career and only your career. Because we make people that get hired and we make the world's best architects. One day, we even had a director at AWS come and join our class call, and he said, I love this program for the following reason. Everybody else is teaching tech, and they don't teach how to sell, how to present, how to design, executive presence, executive communication, CXO relevancy, ROI modeling, all this stuff I need in an architect. You're the only company out there that actually teaches architecture. That was his position, not AWS's position, but that's the key. That's why they hire so many of our people, and that's why our people get hired every day. Chris, you can go to the next one. Ken Kenji, Mr. Gibbs, how is the interview process for a cloud architect job? How many people will you interview? How long are the interviews and how many interviews? So Ken Kenji, it's a couple. So I have interviewed for architect jobs and I've never been in an interview where I didn't get a job, ever. But I know what the company wants. I'm also going to tell you that on average for good companies, there can be 10 interviews. But I'll also tell you, if you knock the interview out of the park like I have, because I prepared 100 hours per interview, I've been hired on the spot for most of the jobs. I was hired by WorldCom on the spot. I was hired by Knight Securities, which was the biggest market maker on the NASDAQ at the time, on the spot. I was hired by Cisco within 48 hours at the time I met with them. I was hired by Comcast on my first interview, first one. And I was hired by Dimension Data, which was also on my first interview, first one. Now, I'll also tell you this, Kenji, when I was at Cisco for a couple of years and I got interviewed to be a senior manager enterprise architect, let me tell you that was 16 interviews to go from an engineering or sales engineering job to that job. What's the interview process like? Well, it's much shorter if you're great. Typically speaking, you'll get a screener interview where somebody asks you some basic tech questions just to make sure you've got a little degree of competency. Then you typically come in and you'll meet with, you'll speak to 2 or 3 people on the phone, one technical interview, one kind of a behavioral interview. How do you respond to this? How do you behave in this situation, etc. Now, architect interviews are not engineering interviews. They always have a presentation involved. So typically they will give you a business problem to solve. And after you solve the business problem, then you'll need to design an architecture, present the architecture, and sell it back to the customer like a real job. Kenji, that's the biggest part of the architect interview, and that's where 90% of the people don't get hired. And here's the reason. They've been training to configure, but we don't touch the tech when they needed to present on how to design, present, and sell. So upwards of 10 people will interview you, and it will always have a presentation. There's a video on my YouTube channel on how to master the Cloud Architect Solution to Architect interview presentation. But as a rule, this is where you need training. With the students on our Cloud Architect Career Development Program, the first project they do is fill in a video, tell me about yourself. And here's the reason why. Do you know what the most common interview question is on the first one? Tell me about yourself. And here's the thing. If you master that elevator pitch, the interview is going to go your way. If you can show the hiring manager on that question that you are technically competent, energetic, enthusiastic, passionate about your work, emotionally intelligent, hardworking, and willing to go above and beyond, and a great team player, it's over. You're already hired. You've already made that person so excited that it's your job to lose. So focus on how you design, present, and sell. Don't talk about coding. Don't talk about configuring. Mike, have you ever coded? I've been interviewed. Lots of people know how to code. No, I don't know how to code. I'm a cloud architect or an enterprise architect. I've transformed businesses. I've designed billion-dollar architectures, led large teams, presented in industry conferences. I'm published in the last month in 20 different magazines. I'm known as a thought leader. If you wanted me to code, that's not really my skill. But if you want me to design and really bring in the business and solve your customer problems, I'm your person. Never have I had a problem, ever. That's the interview process. That's the interview process. So make sure you're an expert presenter. Make sure you can explain the technology, not, hey, Mike, I know how to set up an S3 bucket. They don't care. But do you know about object storage? Do you know how to use that metadata? Do you know what to stick in the object storage? Do you know how to create a data lake with that object storage? Do you know when to use object storage versus another storage? That's what they need is. What is the tech? How does the tech work? And why should an organization use that tech? That's how you explain technology. And here's a secret. I'm going to make a LinkedIn post later about the same topic. If you ask me about an IP address or BGP, you're going to say, Mike, that's so easy. I can't believe I haven't understood it all this year. As Albert Einstein said, if you can't explain something easily and simply, you don't know it well enough. And when I see somebody that took an AWS Advanced Networking, and those people know who they are, and the AWS Advanced Networking is not even an intro to 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 introductory level networking. And my students say, hey, Mike, what do you think of this? And I say, this person doesn't even know what they don't know. They don't know where to begin. They have no idea. So it's going to be hard to understand. And when you take a course from an expert, it's going to be simple. So when you train in configuration and Python and sysops and DevOps, and you go to this architect interview and they say, how do I load share across 2 direct connections without getting out of order packets? And you don't know BGP traffic engineering. The interview's over. They don't care if you can go to the Cisco router and type router BGP 65312, neighbor 192.168.1.1, remote AS 65313, network 10.0.0.0, mask 255.0.0.0, network 10.1.0.0, mask 255.255.0.0, aggregate address 10.0.0.0, summary only. That's configuration commands, and that's worthless. They don't care for the architect. Now, for that network engineer, that's really critical. For that cloud engineer, that's really critical. What they want to know is, okay, here's what we can do. We could leak a more specific subnet on this and a more specific subnet, and we can load share, and that we won't get out of packets. Or I can change the weight of this route and the weight of this route. I could change the local preference of this route. I could change the multi-exit discriminator of these routes. I could change the origin code from incomplete to IGP, for example, to make this preferred. They want to know that you know how to do the tuning. How do you tune it in your head? That's what you're trying to communicate. It's still a technical job, but it's not how to do it. It's always how to design it. It goes back to that building architect. You want to build that hotel. I need it to be 1,000 meters tall. I need a waterfall. I need 2 restaurants. They design the blueprints, but they don't pick up the hammer. They don't pick up a nail. They don't touch the cement. They design it. So be the architect, and you'll be hired every time, every time, every time. Kenji, what a great question, and I hope I answered your question. And then Chris, go to the next one. You're about to complete your master's degree in data science. I want to know to leverage my skills. You have also worked as a system administrator. You want to be cloud architect hired. Okay, so I'm going to tell you right now, system administrator skills is not what we do. We're going to have to hide your systems administrator skills. You're about to complete your master's degree in data science. Great. Again, totally unrelated to architecture. So what can we extrapolate from your data science? In your data science, did you take any business courses along the way? Did it prepare you to analyze information to make better business decisions? If so, that's good. Do you know how to elicit information from people as well? And how can you show that, how it can make an impact on the person? Do you understand big data architectures, which is not data science, by the way, but data ingestion from streaming data, for example, which could be put in, say, an Apache Kafka. I won't say AWS Kinesis because it's proprietary and we always use 2 or more clouds in the architecture that matters. But do you know how to take in the streaming data? Do you then know this? Now, here's the good news. Most data scientists know machine learning. Now, here's the thing. We're not going to be configuring or coding any machine learning ever. But I want you to think about things that you could do in architecture. Let's say I've got a bank that needs a critical security architecture. And I've got a firewall, an IPS system, access control list, security groups, and et cetera, Active Directory, and all these other things. Now, each one of these things gives me logs constantly, VPC. I'm getting logs from everything. Could I take these logs, for example? Can I ingest them into a streaming service? Can I visualize them in real time? Then can I take those same information, store that information in object storage? Then can I have a data scientist create a machine learning algorithm so we can make inferences out of that? Ooh. So if you understand big data architectures, you could be a cloud architect that specializes in big data. Understanding of the topologies, the kinds of databases to use, understanding data sources, understanding how the data can be analyzed for better business decisions. So it's not going to be the hands-on data science work, but there's that. Now your sysadmin work, that's going to be a tough one, and here's the reason why. Sysadmins have a reputation for being a little rough around the edges and not communicating well and being hands-on techies. So that's okay, we can still work with that. What we have to do is show that you are an architect and not a sysadmin, which means if you've been writing scripts on Linux systems, you can say design script to optimize XYZ, which impacted the business by XYZ%, for example. Instead of saying set up Linux systems, you can say help design a plan to adopt Red Hat Enterprise Linux, for example. I don't care which one it is. That decreased outages by 11% over the previous Windows servers. You might be able to say, help design a new identity and access management system that improved security by determining who the users were, what they did in tracking it. You could talk about that. So the key is to tease out the business impact of your sysadmin work, not the fact that you know how to code and configure and patch stuff, because that's not what you do. But you may, from your past life, gotten good at strategies to optimize the workflow to fix these things. Maybe as a systems administrator, you wrote a script or made a new patch management application or designed a new process to patch systems better. Now that process that you designed, that's architecture. The hands-on tech that you did is techie. So when we get people from this background, they really need a lot of training. They need training in sales, training in presentation skills, training in emotional intelligence, training in executive presence. What's executive presence? BGP is a path vector routing protocol that's used for interdomain routing, and it uses TCP port 779. Executive presence is when the person walks in the room and you feel it. BGP is a path vector routing protocol that's used for interdomain routing. It works and it's based upon TCP port 179, and it's used to exchange network layer reachability information. Now let's talk about what is network layer reachability information. See, same words, but it feels different. Today, you're going to need to learn how to sell. And it's not like selling a car. Imagine how good you're going to feel in these beautiful leather seats. You drive down the road, everybody's going to look at you. You're going to feel good, feel strong. No. People don't buy tech because it makes them feel good. And they don't buy tech because they like it. But when you have $1 billion technology architecture that it can improve sales by $3 billion, your customer is going to buy it every time. So what are we really talking about here, 10D? We're really talking about building the business acumen, the leadership skills, the sales skills, the executive presence, the emotional intelligence, the ROI modeling, et cetera, combining, and the negotiation skills, combining that with the business pieces that you can take out of data science. And I like to say to my data scientists that I worked with, here, it's not how you can aggregate it, do the data. That person's the low-paid data scientist. But if you can find me a data scientist that can not only figure out what the data is, what it means, and then go present it to the CEO, now you're talking about more of a data architect. So keep the difference in those mind, do that, and 10 days, you're going to do great. Love the question, and I want to help you get cloud hardened. If you'd like us to train you, we'd love to. Ask us your questions in the chat box. Felon Jackson, if you're unable to join the live classes, does it make sense? Well, I think it does, and here's the reason why. But it's up to you, and I don't tell anybody how to spend their money. If and when you have real questions, I mean in any program, the basic where you can attend classes and the non-basic, you can always submit a question via Slack. But here's the difference. If you can only attend part of my class and you want to pop into the class for the first 15 minutes of the class and ask a question in real time, I can answer your question in real time in real reality. So there's that. So if you can attend any of the classes live, it's always better. But if you can't, don't worry. Our basic program is great. We'll still get you hired. The other reason I like to see you is as follows. Every day, 5 to 15 recruiters say, hey, Mike, do you want a job? And I say, I don't, because I have 300 recruiters in my network. But, I got this great person, and I'd really like you to speak to Nikhil, for example. And a name I just picked out. And I like to do that, but I can't do that to people I don't know. So for people that come to the classes where I get to see them and know them, there's that. So it's up to you. We'll get you hired no matter what you do. But if you can attend the live classes and we can meet, and I can watch you present live, as opposed to the presentations and the videos that we'll grade, it's better. But it's up to you. I don't really care. All I care is that you get cloud hired, and all I care is you know what a cloud architect is, learn how to do the cloud architect job, and we make you hired in the end. However we get you there, I don't care. I just want to know that you're hired. I want to know that we make an impact in your life, and I want to know that at the end of our program, you're hired with a great career, because otherwise, my team wouldn't do this. I got to tell you, constantly, I've got a student right now in Grenada. He's a really, really fine young man, a great man. He'd been on 20 interviews for a security engineer position before he met me. He took my cloud architect course a year ago. Within 3 weeks, he's got to say that within 3 weeks, I got to tell you that he had 3 offers for a security engineer. Now, he's got himself a wonderful cloud security architect job, and we're so excited for him. I'll be announcing him. We'll make a video of it very, very soon. So there's that. Abigail Marks, I see you here, stopping by We welcome you, Abigail Marks. We are super excited to have you here today. You have the cloud architect. Should I go for the AWS solution architect or professional? I'd go straight to the professional if it was me. I'm not a big fan of doing a ton of certifications. They waste your time, effort, and money. You're already the cloud practitioner and the AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate are the same. So here's what I recommend. Come to our completely free AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate Bootcamp next week. And in this free webinar, I will make sure you have all the knowledge that's necessary for that associate. And then guess what? Guess what? We'll even give you half of the knowledge for the professional, then study for the professional, get a practice test and pass that. And here's why we are so focused. The opportunity cost of your time is the greatest thing. An average cloud architect gets $600 a day. A good one gets $1,200 a day. But let's just say you're just average. So if you're earning $600 a day and you waste 3 months on an extra certification, that's $36,000 that you lost. I don't want to see you lose $36,000. So let's get you your end goal as fast as possible. You have the practitioner, skip the associate, go straight to the professional. If you didn't do the practitioner, then go to the associate and professional. Or the reality is for me, I've been doing cloud stuff since 1996. The first cloud was Frame Relay and ISDN. The next cloud was ATM. The cloud after that was the RFC 2547 BGP cloud. The cloud after that was VPLS. Then it was virtualized data center. I've been working with clouds since I can't even remember. All networking people have, especially network architects. And we were even designing clouds and talking to the public cloud providers 15 years ago on how to do this stuff. It's not new to any of us. The cloud is nothing more than a network and a data center. So I decided I was going to do a cloud start just because I wanted to show I had one. And I wanted to prove that our AWS Certified Solution Architect Professional, the free book that we wrote, was good. So I said to my buddy, I said, here, I'm going to go take the Google Professional Cloud Architect exam because that's the only cloud I never worked on. And he laughed at me. And he said, huh? I said, I've never worked on this cloud. So if our AWS book is good, I should be able to take the Google book, the Google exam. And he's like, huh? So here's what I did. I went, read the book, wrote our book. I did order the Cybex book. It came on a Saturday. It came on Friday, but I read it on a Saturday and Sunday. And Monday, I took the Google Professional Cloud Architect exam with 2 days prep and passed it. It was the easiest thing I ever did. I was done it in 45 minutes. And here's the key. If you have knowledge, nothing. So get the knowledge and win. So that's my recommendation. Pat, what's the difference between a solution architect and cloud architect? How much configuring you do? Zero configuring ever. Cloud architects and solution architects never touch the technology. We design, present, and sell. Now, there is a difference between a cloud architect and a solution architect. A cloud architect earns more, a cloud architect is more employable, and the cloud architect is preferable. But let's explain the difference. Here, I work for AWS. I am a solution architect, and here's the reason why. I only design and sell AWS stuff. Now, that's great if you work at AWS, you're a solution architect. And if you work at Microsoft, you're a solution architect because you only sell Microsoft stuff. If you work at Google, you're a solution architect because you only sell Google stuff. Now, if, by comparison, you're at a consulting firm and you're doing meaningful work and the customer says, hey, Mike, I need a high availability solution. And I say, well, what we should do is build you an OpenStack data center. We should we should take your data center and convert that to an OpenStack cloud. And that way you'll get the agility, speed, performance of a cloud. And you'll even get better performance due to lack of latency. And while we're at it, we can leverage your past investment, but we'll still get all that auto scaling, et cetera, with your current equipment. And then we connect that to the Azure cloud and the AWS cloud. Then I'm a cloud architect. So what's the difference between a solution architect and cloud architect? We cloud architects know all the clouds, which is really what our customers need. And a solution architect only knows one. How important is it to know multi-cloud in today's world? Well, 87% of customers use 2 or more clouds. 97% want to be by the end of the year. So the cloud architect job is much higher paying, much more options, and it's much easier to get hired. But we don't code or configure. We design, present, and sell, ever. In my 25-year architecture career, never touched the tech. I got to tell you, I got about 100 people, cloud architects and solution architects hired last year. And they call me after a month or two and say, Mike, am I ever going to touch the tech, or am I just going to design, present, and sell? And I say, you're going to design, present, and sell, buy lunches, dinners, drinks. And they're like, for real? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, you having fun? They're like, Mike, I've never been paid so much money to take people to lunch. And I say, they're like, is there everything, anything techy? I said, have you responded to an RFI, RFP, RFQ? Yeah, I've responded to a lot of them. Have you been giving presentations? Yeah, I do it all the time. Have you done an RO model? Yes, of course I have. Have been meeting with CEOs, CIOs, CTOs? Yes. Are you leading teams and engineers? Of course I am, Mike. Did you write a thought leadership document? Mike, it's funny. My manager just asked me to write this thing so I can get it published on the company's website. I said, that's your job. You will never, never, never touch the technology. So we don't code. We don't configure. That is a cloud engineer. We design, present, and sell. And that's why, Pat, certifications won't get you a cloud architect job, because certifications teach the name of the service and how to configure that service. Now, here's the thing. I can't use any of those proprietary services anyway in my multi-cloud architecture. So in my world, I don't use DynamoDB. I don't use Kinesis. I don't use SQS. I don't use Amazon Aurora. And look, Pat, these are exceptionally good databases and technologies. Exceptionally good. You can't use AWS WAF for the same reason, but they're proprietary. And I want you to think about this. If I want a NoSQL database in my data center and 2 clouds, I can't sync up DynamoDB with Azure Cosmos. They don't work together very nicely. But when I realize that the cloud is nothing more than a network and a data center, and I say, I need a NoSQL database, and I decide to put MongoDB in a virtual machine in my data center, a virtual machine in AWS, and a virtual machine in Azure, they play nicely. I can't use Kinesis because it's proprietary. I'm going to use the same Apache Kafka in all 3 clouds. Now, when it comes to security, and I need a robust next-generation firewall, which WAF is not, and I need something that's adaptive in nature, sees a threat and stops it because it's adaptive, I need a next-generation firewall. Now, if I used a Cisco firewall in one place and a checkpoint firewall somebody else and a Palo Alto firewall in the 3rd data center, I've got 3 robust next-generation firewalls. But here's the problem. How do we deploy the same technology on each one? It becomes complicated. But if I put a Palo Alto next-generation firewall on all 3 clouds, guess what? Now I've got a simple, elegant solution. So Kinesis gets swapped with Kafka, SQS gets swapped with Kafka, DynamoDB gets swapped with MongoDB or Apache Cassandra based upon your read-write traffic, and you, the architect, needs to know. Amazon Aurora gets swapped with something that can run everywhere, like MySQL, Postgres, MariaDB, an Oracle database that works everywhere. So that's really the key. Design, present, and sell. And Pat, I'm going to invite you to the free How to Get Your First Cloud Job webinar on Thursday this week. The link is in the description in the chat box. And I will tell you everything you need to learn to get that first cloud architect job, and you'll be able to come up me on Zoom and ask me questions. And if the meeting runs longer than I'm able to stay, we'll have Alonzo, a really great cloud architect for my team that'll even stay longer like he did last week. And I want to make sure all of you get hired. And I do that webinar completely free for that reason. So sign up, join us. Can I recommend a good source to learn the fundamentals for cloud architect? Yes, our cloud architect career development program. That's where I recommend you learn the fundamentals. But if you don't want to train with us, I'm going to give you exactly what kind of training you need to do. Now, understand that this is an expensive skill to learn. In fact, what we did is we took a course that's worth easily $50,000, $60,000, and we dropped it down to what's the equivalent of an average day's pay for our average graduate. And we teach everything you need to know in our Cloud Architect Career Development Program from the beginning all the way, from literally speaking the beginning, all the way to how to interview and negotiate a higher salary. So if you're with us, you're going to learn these. But if you're not with us, here's what you can do. You can go to Cisco, and at Cisco, here's what you can do. At the Cisco, you can go learn from Cisco the following things. You can learn BGP as a routing protocol, and you can read all the RFCs. You can read the book Internet Routing Architecture from Bassam Halabi and learn BGP. Next, you really should understand interior gateway protocols, especially because of IGP. So that means OSPF, and to some degree, intermediate systems. Then you need to understand NAT. How does NAT work? And NAT is not like the nonsense they teach you in the AWS Advanced Networking. There's much more to it. You need to understand one-to-one NAT, one-to-many NAT, which is also called port overload technology, static NAT, dynamic NAT, etc. And that's not just going to the internet. It's when one company buys another. There's a gazillion one use cases for NAT, and you need to master it. You need to know subnetting and supernetting in depth, because the way you design your IP addressing plan will determine if your systems will work or not work. Next. What else do you need to learn? You need to learn switching, because you're going to be dealing with it all the time. And switching means VLANs, VLAN tagging, VLAN trunking, 802.1q, ISL, although it's more 802.1q today. It includes bundling links together, such as port channel, ether channel, link aggregation groups, because you're going to be working with that stuff everywhere, spanning tree and rapid spanning tree. And again, you can get this kind of knowledge we're talking about is available in about 10 to 15,000 pages from Cisco. Next, DNS, DHCP, ARP, proxy ARP, etc. From the networking side. And you need to understand WAN technologies such as IPsec tunnels, SSL-based VPNs, private lines, Ethernet over MPLS, software-defined networking, and SASE. Now, that's the networking things that you need to know. Now, you can learn that from a place like Cisco. It's going to cost you about $5 to $10 grand to learn those, or you could take our course. I used to teach these skills to engineers at Cisco all the time. So there's that. Now, the next thing you need to know is network and data center technologies. So you need to understand servers and server virtualization. You could go to the VMware website, the KVM website, the QEMU website, the Citrix Zen website, read about 400 or 500 pages of that, and you're going to understand virtualization. Next, you need to understand containers and container orchestration. We don't configure it, but we have to design it, so you need to know really in deep how it works. So you can get that from the Docker and the Kubernetes pages, the Red Hat OpenShift documentation, you'll be good to go. Another 400 or 500 pages and you'll get that. Next, you really need to understand block storage, object storage, and file storage. And if you're in our program, we make it real simple for you. But if not, go to the Dell EMC website, the IBM website, read a few hundred pages, and you understand block storage, object storage, file storage, how to architect with it, et cetera, et cetera. Then, when you're done that, you need to understand databases, how to make them scale, et cetera. Again, you can get it from Oracle, MySQL, MariaDB, Postgres, Microsoft SQL, and you'll get there. Then you got to understand load balancers. Go to the F5 webpage and learn them. Then when you're done that, here's what you need to do. When you're done that, you need to learn firewalls, VPN concentrators, IPS system. You go to Cisco, Palo Alto, Fortinet, Checkpoint. Again, a couple thousand pages you'll get there. They're your technical fundamentals. And of course, you need to read the cloud providers' white papers to know what their service equivalents are. But realize this is not just a tech job. You need to learn these. And these are the expensive skills which cause the program. You need to take some presentation skills training. Now, there's a company in California called Speakeasy. They've got a basic and a second course for about $5,000. You can get that, or you can take our course. I don't really care. I just want you getting cloud hired. Then you will need to take some CXO relevancy training. Personally, I've been through about $10,000 of that. It's expensive training, but you need to get that. But we teach it, so you don't have to worry about it. Then you will need to learn how to sell. So we teach that. But if you're not with us, get a course on sales. Dale Carnegie in New Jersey has some very good sales courses. Again, they're a couple $1,000s. Next, you will need to learn how to do ROI modeling. Again, we teach you how to do that, or you can get an MBA. In any case, you're going to learn how to do these kind of things because that's a critical skill. Then you're going to need to learn executive writing, which is different than the kind of writing we learn in an MBA program. In an MBA program, they teach us, go write a 40-page document on this. Executive writing is how do you write 40 pages of material in 2 pages, so you're going to learn that. Next, you're going to need to learn negotiation. We teach it, but if you don't want to take it with us, you can get it from the Harvard negotiation process or Chris Voss. Either way, it's going to cost you a couple $1,000s for the training, et cetera, et cetera. So when we put together a course that's on sale for $800 now, as opposed to what it's going to cost to do it on your own, now you know why we do it. Now you know why we do it. Leon, can you tell us a bit about the work-life balance as a cloud architect? I'm going to tell you this. If you want a big career and work-life balance, guess what? Get another job. I tell my students, and don't get me wrong, the cloud architect job is good. If you want work-life balance, get a job at McDonald's, Burger King, KFC, Chick-fil-A. And here's the reason. There is no professional job that pays you several $100,000 a year where if they need you, you can say no. So all things that matter, work-life balance is something that we don't care about. It's something you should throw out the window. And if you ask an employer, what's the work-life balance like? Interview's over, they hire somebody else. So if your goal is work-life balance, I suggest you work at McDonald's. Now, having said that, and I'm trying to be difficult, I will tell you that when I worked as an engineer, it was a tough life. I'll tell you when it worked as an architect, I did put in some hours, but half of it was going to the customer site, talking, buying lunches, buying dinners, buying drinks, etc. So if your goal is work-life balance, I suggest you not do anything significant in your career. Doctors work hard, airplane pilots work hard, cloud architects work hard, enterprise architects work hard, management works hard, CEOs work hard. So if your goal is work-life balance, stay out of these big careers. But I will tell you this, the enterprise architect, cloud architect, and network architect job are the easiest jobs I've ever had compared to the other jobs. Do you work long hours? Sometimes. I've had weeks where I put in 100 hours, and I have weeks where I went to the beach all week. I do whatever it takes to get the job done. What is the step-by-step guide to moving into these high-paying career paths that you're describing? Build your leadership skills, your sales skills, your business acumen, your emotional intelligence, your executive presence, and get the technical skills that are necessary. Michael Dunn, which is a great question. I just talked about for the person, which is all the things they wanted to learn for a cloud architect. Guess what? It's all that. Like I said, my manager many years ago said, Mike, what's the difference between a $150,000 engineer and a $300,000 architect? That was 20 years ago when I got my first $300,000 job. And he said, business acumen, leadership skills, sales skills, executive presence, emotional intelligence, ROI modeling, presentation ability, executive writing. Those are the skills. It's not which certification you get, it's the impact you can make to the organization. Michael Dunn, I want you to think about it another way. An architect like me that's a business expert. I learned some of it in my MBA, but I also took about $100,000 plus of leadership training, which was mostly funded by Cisco. But I did pay for a lot on my own as well. And there's this. If I can go to a customer and I can speak to their CEO and I can ask them about their business and their sales and what's going on with their e-commerce platform. If I can increase their sales by $3 billion, which may only be 2 or 3% or 10%, with some new web architecture that changes the customer's flow and brings people in. If I asked to be paid $800,000 a year, and I designed $1 billion architecture, which delivers $3 billion of business value to the customer, I bring in $1 billion of business to the cloud provider and I say, I want $1 million a year. They're like, okay, you brought us in $1 billion, who cares? So you want to earn more. It's all about leadership skills. It's all about the impact you make, and it has nothing to do with the tech. But you got to be technically competent to do the job. Chris, bring in the next one. I'm going to try and get through some of the backlog if we can. I don't have a lot of time, but maybe 10 minutes. Catherine, we're preparing cloud architect jobs. Would you say it's good to know about architecture frameworks? Yeah. So Catherine, I'm going to tell you, I've been an architect my whole life, mostly an enterprise architect and a network architect and cloud architect. And the architecture teams would put all this stuff in these beautiful TOGAF frameworks, pretty pictures, logic, and then you present it to the customer and they say, what's that mean? So Catherine, I'm going to tell you, most of my career was taking these kind of frameworks and unframeworking them and describing them in simple, effective terms that my customers understand, getting rid of these silly frameworks and these silly buses. So no, I built my career by taking people out of the TOGAF frameworks and described it in simple, plain, effective communication languages. Chris, do we have more that I can answer? Kenji, really appreciate your answers to all the content knowledge you share, Mr. Gibbs. Thank you so much, Kenji. Mr. Businessman, it's so good to see you over there in Georgia. Glad to see you're better. You've been on vacation in Melton. Then to the Biltmire, I'm assuming in Miami. And you're back. I'm so happy you're back. Hope all is well. I'm doing much better without this COVID thing. Kurt, what is the schedule or time requirement of live classes? Kurt, our live classes are the following when we record all of them if you miss them. And you can attend part of the class and watch the replay later in the recording. The class schedules are as follows. Tuesdays at 9 a.m. Eastern, which is 2 p.m. UK time. Thursdays at 4 p.m. Eastern, which is 9 p.m. UK time. And Fridays at 12 p.m. Eastern, which is 5 p.m. UK time. And I'm assuming you're asking about the architect classes. The engineering classes are at different time. These times, we pick them for the following reasons. We have customers all over Europe, all over Africa, all over the US, Canada, and South America. And these times that we picked work perfectly for that. UK time is Nigeria time, and we've got lots of people in Nigeria. Central European time is kind of WAT, which covers Cameroon, etc. So we picked those times. Now we do have students in India and Pakistan and Asia and Japan and Singapore and Australia. In fact, we just got somebody an extremely good enterprise architect job in Australia about a week ago. I'm really happy for him. We've got people in New Zealand. So our times are extremely convenient for the US, UK, North Canada, South America, Europe, and Africa. And they're a little bit rougher in the Middle East towards Asia, but we've got people in India coming to classes and Asia coming to our classes. They tell me it's worth staying up late in order to do it because they've learned so much. We'd love to work with you, Kurt. Help you get to your goals. Okay, so I hope I answered your questions. I'm going to summarize with the following. Please join us for the completely free AWS Certified Solution Architect Associate Bootcamp. The link is in the chat box and the description below. This week, I'm going to do a subnetting workshop and a BGP workshop. Come. It's completely free. I want to help you build your best cloud computing career. And while we're at it, join me on the completely free How to Get Your First Cloud Architect Job webinar on Thursday. I will tell you everything you need to know to get hired. And guess what? You can ask me questions live on Zoom, and it's going to be fun, fun, fun. I hope you've had a good time. If you want your first cloud architect job, join our Cloud Architect Career Development Program. If you want your first cloud engineering job, please join our Cloud Engineer Career Development Program. If you've got an interview coming up, you can try our Tech Career Interview Program, our Tech Interview Mastery Program. And if you're trying to earn more in your job and you're already working in tech and you're looking to get promoted, you can take our Tech Career Accelerator Program. Everything we do is designed to help you build your best career. You live in Jacksonville, Florida, Kurt, that's perfect. I'm in Palm Beach, just north of Palm Beach, Florida. Chris from my team is also in Florida. He's in St. Petersburg. Love to work with you. Thank you all. If you've had a good time, please hit the like. Please subscribe and hit the bell, and that way you're going to be notified of all the wonderful free training we have coming your way. We're going to have a lot more leadership blogs coming, a lot of interview blogs coming, and we're going to do everything we can to help you get your first cloud architect job, or cloud engineer job, or cloud job in general. Thanks so much, and I hope to see you on another question and answer session, video, or in class very soon. We'll be back on Wednesday, everyone.